Good morning. I'm happy to welcome you to Wednesdays with Willa, my blog talk radio show, but I also like to do this live on Facebook. And we're going to have a wonderful show talking about I Can Only Imagine. And the blog talk radio site is about to go on. So I don't know what the weather is like where you are, but here in Lilydale it is windy. We've been having quite strong winds. The other night it took down some trees in here in Lilydale, so that's been an adventure for some of my neighbors. And so I wanted to see how everybody was doing out there. We also had 2 days of fog, almost 2 full days of fog, all day long here in Lilydale not too long ago, and that was kind of interesting. I remember taking a picture down at Casadega Lake, and you couldn't see the other side. So you couldn't even see maybe 10 feet in front of you. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And this is going to be an interactive show, so you can certainly put things in your Facebook comments, and you can call into the show, because I'd love to have you give your positive comments about I Can Only Imagine. And what's the weather like where you all are? Are you having the high winds that Lilydale is?
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Log Voice Radio.
Welcome to Lilydale Radio, featuring topics about spiritualism, mediumship, healing, spirituality, and the Lilydale Assembly, the world's largest center for the religion, philosophy, and science of spiritualism. This is Lilydale Radio.
Good morning and welcome to Lilydale Radio. You're tuning in to Wednesdays with Willa, which is my radio show. And I am Willa White, your host. I'm a registered medium here in Lilydale. And there are currently 4 shows a week by registered mediums here in Lilydale. On my show, I like to have guests. Today I'm flying solo because my children have off from school. So they get in the kind of run of the house, as it were, in that sense. So I'm happy to fly solo today because I love our topic, which is I Can Only Imagine. And I'll explain a little bit more about that for those who aren't familiar with the biggest, hottest movie out there right now, it would seem. So I want to say that if you're wanting to tune in to Wednesdays with Willa, you can check it out on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. on my Facebook page, which is Willa White Medium. And you can also go on to the blogtalkradio.com slash Lilydale radio site, and that's a way for audio only. And you do have the opportunity of calling in today. I want this to be an interactive show with all of you, and the call-in number is 818-739-8818. Again, 818-739-8818. So please call in, because this is going to be a wonderful topic. Hi everyone, I appreciate you tuning in today. I really enjoyed the show. I wanted to mention it's been about 7 months now that I've been doing Wednesdays with Willa, and I have a lot of fun with it. It's a 45-minute show typically, and I usually have guests on every week and different topics. For those of you who are just tuning in, I'm flying solo today because my children have off from school this week. Hi. And so I thought this would be a great topic. I went to see the I Can Only Imagine movie last month, and really enjoyed it. I don't go to see very many movies in the theater. I do consider myself to be somewhat of a movie buff because I don't watch TV. We do watch, documentaries and fun films and family films and things like that because we have children. But I don't tend to get myself out to that movie theater. But when I saw the trailer for I Can Only Imagine, I said, oh, that's one I want to go see. And my husband said, let's go. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the movie, it's based on a song, a very popular song that is out there. And it's, of course, I Can Only Imagine. The band who sings it is MercyMe and performs it. And they are a very interesting crew of folks. But the movie focuses on the lead singer. And his name is Bart Maillard. And his journey in his life led him to write this song. And so it became very much an authentic, cathartic piece of work for him. And he is more in the Christian music genre and has really done a lot to inspire other people. But the movie, I think, brings it more into mainstream. I know reports, what I was reading, that they made it for like $7 million compared to all those megalithic amounts of money spent on other movies that Hollywood puts out. And it's doing astronomically well, much better than they ever expected a spiritual movie to do. And I wanted to have a conversation with all of you about this because I've noticed different elements of spiritualism that show up in movies and even mainstream movies, and how that is perfectly accepted in that movie space for people who wouldn't necessarily have considered that to be spirit contact or have thought about it. I know when we did the Christmas show, I had David Glossaman on and we talked about A Christmas Carol, the book, and of course it has had many, many movies made of it. And it's something that it talks about spirit contact. The whole movie, it's about spirit contact and about life review and a lot of things that are near and dear to my heart as a spiritualist. But if you were to ask the regular folks on the street, they probably wouldn't have put two and two together with all of that. So I'm depending on the reaction of people from talking about this spiritual movie, we may talk about other spiritual movies in the future as well. Who has seen the I Can Only Imagine movie? If you want to even just put a number 1 and let me know who's seen it and who hasn't seen it. It'd be kind of interesting to kind of take a little poll today about that. I really noticed that the theater was full. When we went, the theater was full, and we had to kind of we arrived a little late. The previews were already on. We had to kind of scope the territory out, and ended up sitting really close to the screen. But so I had full impact, and it was really a wonderful. Oh, I'm seeing lots of ones from some people. And it's a bit of a tearjerker movie, so I made sure I took tissues. I tend to take movies, to movies, I tend to have tissues on hand because being a sensitive, guess what happens? I can cry. So I do recommend that if you go see the movie, take your tissues. Better to have them than not. But with the music video, I did look that up afterward because I wasn't familiar with the song. Maybe some of you were, but if you were to look at the lyrics and then look at the music video, I did post that on my Facebook page on the event I Can Only Imagine for the radio show. I did post the music video, and for those of you who didn't get a chance to take a look at that after the show, go and take a look at that video, because there are people in the music video, different people who are not band members, that are holding up pictures of their loved ones. They are holding up these pictures of loved ones that have passed. And so the lyrics, I just want to share a little bit of the lyrics, so for those of you who aren't familiar with the song or movie can kind of glean what my understanding of it is. I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine, surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? And, it goes on, and it's really interesting when a song touches people like that, when you're talking about crossing over, when you're talking about the afterlife and passing, and the significance that it has on a soul when that happens. That's my line of work, and connecting people with their loved ones who have passed to spirit is a great joy of mine, and it's a big reason of why I do what I do. And so with clients, I'm constantly talking about the end of life and what that moment was like, and sometimes people are very curious about what it's like for people that have passed on the other side, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But this particular song, I know many people who have listened to it, it's gotten them through very difficult times of grief, because when you have to say goodbye to a person and they pass, and then you start to have this idea of what could it be like? How will I meet up with them? Who am I going to see when I cross? And what is it going to be like for me? And will I see Jesus? And those kinds of things. It's a common question for people. And sometimes they'll even ask about their spirit love. A client will ask about a spirit loved one, and they'll say, so who were the people that met them? And so that's always interesting to explore as well. But I want to take us back to elements of the movie. So the singer, the songwriter, Bart, he, in his journey, he grew up in an abusive environment with his father. His mother left when he was a child, and that had great impact on him, of course. And it had been such an abusive environment, and that was a big reason about why she left the family. And his father was heavily abusive. Now, in the movie, Dennis Quaid, he's a famous actor. He's probably the only famous one that's actually in the movie, I think. And he plays the father. And he is quite abusive. Some of the things that they show in the movie, I'm assuming some of those aspects were correct to Bart's true story. And that's painful for someone like me to watch. But he early on goes to a Christian camp, and he does meet the person who will become his girlfriend and whatnot, and he starts to explore the idea of forgiveness early on, and he's given a journal at that time, and he hasn't been able to figure out what to write down in it. The way some of us, we'd get a hold of a journal and we'd be like, it would just be purging out of us. But it wasn't the right time for him in his journey, and so he had to live with his father constantly undermining him, telling him that he couldn't live his dreams. And it was a very difficult journey for him, because the only way to get his father's attention was to play football. His father had been a football player, and that was what floated his boat. And he'd been big in college football, and something had happened, of course. And he was quite bitter by this, and bitter about his wife. And so he was really taking it out on his nearest and dearest, unfortunately. So Bart gets hurt playing football, and of course his father's like, well, what good are you now? It's just horrible. And it's hard to not take those things to heart when someone is that abusive and they're such a primary person in your life. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome those kinds of obstacles? So I think that's another reason why this movie appeals. And so, he's how many times do people have their father or their mother that was abusive that's in their head still, that they're still being raised by their parents and they're adults? And it's something that in a reading with a client frequently would come up. if their parents were of that ilk, that sometimes will get mentioned and things are resolved and there are apologies that are given. Now, Bart, eventually, people discover that he can sing. And he doesn't think he can sing, but he's got an amazing voice. And so he's discovered in that sense, and he sings for his church, and that's really important for him. So I'm going to fast forward it. He eventually gets on the road with a Christian music group, and at least in the movie, this is the synopsis here. He gets on the road with a Christian group, and they're traveling in different places, and they're trying to catch the eye of different folks because they really want their message to get out there. And the guy says, you really need to find a song that pulls us in, that is authentic, that's truly you. And how often we have those opportunities of finding ourselves and finding our perfect self-expression, and we give up and we quit, right? But Bart continues on. He wants to quit. He continues on, and eventually, at least in the movie plot, he goes back home. He's just called back home, and his dad, while he's been away, there's been a metamorphosis that he's been undergoing. He's been listening to the radio Christian shows, and he's starting to read the Bible, and he's read it a couple times, and he's really trying to explore different aspects of himself. And it's tough for a guy who didn't let that in, and he's trying. You can really see, at least in the movie, he tries. And Bart eventually has to work through how he's going to deal with a father who's different, who's not abusive with him. And spoiler alert, it's still a good movie, but even if I spoil it for you, he has cancer, and Bart nurses him through those things. And then, of course, the grief that he deals with when his father eventually passes. He finally gets a father that he could relate with well, and his father passes. But they do have that moment of peace, that moment of grace that happens between the many moments that add up to such a beautiful story. And I've had clients where that has been the case. They had a contentious relationship with their mother or their father, whoever, their husband, and they go into nursing of them, and they forgive, and a lot of their issues with that person, they drop away, and they go back to that basic nature of well, this is as good as it can be now, and I'm going to let this go. And sometimes there are discussions of forgiveness, and sometimes it's just done on an energetic level. And it's very, very healing. So, of course, his father passes, and he's dealing with grief, as so many people are. And he's trying to figure out how to deal with things. And he keeps recalling a phrase that happened at the funeral. His grandmother says, imagine what your father's seeing in heaven. Imagine what he's experiencing is her take on it. And Bart says, I can only imagine. And he starts writing it down in his notebook. He doesn't even realize it till later. And then it strikes him, and he writes a song based on it. And this was a song that he dedicated to his father. And it's truly a beautiful song that's helped so many people. And it was his way of handling his grief. And he still had other years. I know I'm crisscrossing between the movie and from what I've been able to glean in my readings about his biography. But it's really interesting that he wasn't ready for a movie to come out about this immediately after the song. But it took him a while to get through grief counseling and to get himself ready so that he could talk about this. And that's how it is for folks. I see that I have a lot of callers that I've been ignoring. So I'm going to take our first caller, 6975, number ending in 6975. Hello and welcome to the show. Hello? Hello, 6975, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, what's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm from Alabama. My name is Kara.
Hi, Kira. Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. Today our topic is the movie I Can Only Imagine, or you can talk about the song. Did you have a positive comment that you wanted to make about that?
Remember, I just got on.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
know if you were doing readings.
No readings. I don't do readings on the show. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you don't do readings?
No, I will not be doing readings. So, okay.
I just want to continue to listen.
Great. So, have a good day, Kira. I'm going to go with our next caller, which ends in 6439. Oh, I think people wanted readings. So if anybody wants to call in and talk about this movie or talk about the story or song with me, and maybe you've watched it, or even just watching the trailer felt impact from it, call in and share with me about that, because I'd love to hear your take on it. And there are certain aspects, like I said, of dealing with grief that people find very healing when they have music in their lives. And one of my shows coming up is the music of spiritualism. So we'll talk about some of the sacred hymns and how some hymns have been changed a bit, altered for a spiritualist viewpoint, but we'll also talk about how spirit uses music. So that's something coming up toward the end of April, that particular show. And so I strongly suggest you tune in for that show. But music has amazing impact. Many people, when they hear a particular song and it's associated with their loved one, they know that that's a connection point for them. And it brings them a lot of healing. It brings them a lot of peace. And I know when I was looking online about the I Can Only Imagine the song, Winona, she's a country music singer. She did this song as well, and it's something that was very important to her. That song helped her get through a difficult time. She explains that to the audience. You can YouTube that one. And she talks about how her mom said it's okay to show people the cracks, and it helps let the light in. And so a lot of times people, when they're sharing about their grief, and about their challenges, it's a way of venting, and it's a way of letting light in. And in the case of I Can Only Imagine, you certainly see an amazing level of forgiveness. Now, having just come off Easter, Christian celebration of Easter, and the idea of forgiveness being such a strong message with that, I think that's something that people can really relate with. I think that's another reason this movie has done well, although it would have done well any time of year, in my opinion. I can see comments on Facebook. Yes, music has helped me through my grief. And so quite possibly I Can Only Imagine will be a song that helps people through their great grief. One of the stanzas here, let's see. I can only imagine when that day comes, when I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. So there's talking about connection with God, talking about connection with loved ones who've passed. And as I mentioned earlier, if you go back on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium, and go to the event I Can Only Imagine, I did post the music video for I Can Only Imagine there. And it's really interesting to watch that music video. They did it in black and white, so there's a nostalgic feel to it, just from the visual perspective. But the band members are doing their thing, but you can see other people who are not band members, and they're sitting there and in different spaces, and they're holding up pictures of their loved ones that have passed, that they have connection with, and it's something that they deeply, deeply feel. You can see the yearning for connection with their loved ones in spirit, and wanting to the looking forward of seeing them in the afterlife. And so I really thought, wow, these are just such a beautiful spiritual message. Now, before I forget, oh, I see another caller. If anybody wants to call in and talk with me on air about I Can Only Imagine, please call in 818-739-8818. Again, 818-739-8818. I want to take caller ending in 7396. Again, caller ending in 7396. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Ashia, calling from Georgia.
Georgia. Wonderful. Well, today our topic is I Can Only Imagine, which is, we're mainly focusing on the movie. Did you have a comment you'd like to make about that?
Oh, it's a movie. I never seen that movie.
All right, what happens, and this is my Wednesdays with Willa show, and I have a different topic. A lot of times I'll have guests on the show. I'm not doing readings, so if you've called in for a reading, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
But you can still listen in if you wish. Okay? Thank you. Yeah, I'm not doing readings, folks. I do topic shows and I have guests, like I said. Many of you who've been watching me steadily understand about that. So, as I said, you can call in, not for a reading, but if you want to call in to engage in the conversation with me, it's 818-739-8818. Okay, so back to all of this. Now, in the movie, the song is eventually brought to the attention of Amy Grant. Bart loves Amy Grant, and those of you who know that Amy Grant, Christian artist, but also went mainstream with many of her musical renditions of things, and married to Vince Gill, who is a country music singer. And they have an interesting story themselves. But she does play a factor in the song and getting it promoted, and wants to take that song on in her own repertoire. And that was the plan. But at the concert where she's going to show everyone and perform this song, she can't do it. She knows that it's a personal song for Bart, and so she calls him up, and he's able to do this. And it's such a tribute to his father. He wrote that song for his father. He sings it gloriously. And in the movie, what did they do? They show the father with heavenly light around him, watching his son. So he's doing this for his father, and in the movie, you can see the father is looking back at him and taking part in his life. That it's not something where spirit doesn't show up in your life again. Spirit is there for big moments. Sometimes spirit is there for little moments. But I loved that they showed that in the movie. Our loved ones, they care very deeply about us. And they do try to visit. Now, they're not around 24/7, but they do like to visit. They do like to take part in things. And I thought it was a wonderful representation that in the movie that they showed that. I hope that was one of your favorite parts, too, if you've seen the movie. Now, they do this in movies. They'll sneak, like spirit contact in there, and people aren't always thinking about that. That's just somehow very accepted. And so I think that's happening. I hope people understand that it's because it's real, and it's something's real that's being expressed. People have noted the presence of their loved ones in spirit around them when they're going through difficult times, when they're going through amazing times, incredible rewards and awards that they're receiving, and pivotal moments in their life. And so that is now I'm seeing somebody is wanting the number to call in to take part in the conversation. The Spiritualist Cinema Conversation is 818-739-8818. Again, 818-739-8818. And you can call in and you can talk with me and share your thoughts about this movie. And I'm seeing comments on Facebook for those of you who are just listening in on Blog Talk Radio. People are talking about how they've talked with their loved ones in spirit. One lady says, I feel my mom a lot, and talk to her out loud. And that's the way to do it. It's a lot of times you'll sense their presence when you're doing something else. You're busy being occupied with your activities of the day, and all of a sudden it's like they come in the room and you're thinking of them and what their thoughts are about a particular thing. It's because they just have come in the room. In your aura, your energy, your soul is understanding that their presence is there. So it's a lot of fun to interact with our loved ones. And think about it, when it's your turn to go, you're going to want to come visit and check in on people. And depending on how nosy you are, you might be trying to, help people with their lives. But we all have free will. That's what I try to remind my clients. We all have free will. And Spirit does assist, they can encourage, they can support, but they can't do it for us. And I think that this movie really does a wonderful job of showing the arc of a character. Not just Bart, but I'm talking about his father especially. Someone that you would not have expected to find a spiritual sense of self and to have spiritual awareness. He did find it. And whether you do it here or do it there, it's going to happen. And sometimes we have to be very patient with people. And those that are in spirit, like I said, they do visit, and they're not around 24/7 because they've got other things that they're doing. There's a lot of different understandings that some folks need to come to in their progression. Whatever state of consciousness you have when you're here on the earth plane, when you pass, you take that with you, you learn and grow from that place. And it's an adventure in and of itself. You don't just get assigned a harp and a cloud. How boring would that be, right? So I think we can all agree, unless you love playing harp, you're going to want to move on to other things in your own understandings. And sometimes I will see spirit in classrooms, or when I'm teaching, or when I'm doing the messages at Inspiration Stump or Forest Temple or at the church. You can see other people have kind of filled into the room that are in spirit because they like to be there as well for the messages. So I think it's wonderful that they can see you, they can see what you're doing. I've noticed that they do show up when people are coming to the end of life as well. I was a hospice volunteer for a number of years, and they do show up around a person to help them with their crossing. Many of the patients I would go see had Alzheimer's, dementia, that sort of thing. And maybe I should do a show about that sometime. But it's really interesting what happens with a person. They start to talk with their loved ones in spirit. And you, if you are in the situation of being a caregiver for someone in that way, you can certainly listen and speak with their soul when you can't speak to someone's conscious self, and know that can happen. And so I do feel that Bart, in his journey in the movie I Can Only Imagine, it is something that they show how a person can change here or in the hereafter, right? The person can change their mindset. A person that is very angry and upset can move themselves into a space of healing. For anybody who wants to call in today, the guest call-in number is 818-739-8818. If you want to join in this Spiritualist Cinema Conversation about the movie I Can Only Imagine. You can also talk about the song, if you will, that the movie is based on. And it's a wonderful, glorious song when you think about I Can Only Imagine. When you imagine what it's like on the other side, what is it that you imagine? What is it that you visualize? Ask yourself those questions. And a good way to understand it better is to go into meditation, to go into prayer, and to listen to that soul and that deep connection with God. And a lot of times spirit loved ones will be around us in those times. It does take practice, right practice, right intention, and that's something that is so wonderful about Lilydale. We do have the opportunity to learn and grow on how with our spiritual evolution, but also with spirit contact. I see I've got another caller. Caller ending in 6427. Again, ending in 6427. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Pat Anthony, and I'm calling from Jamestown, New York.
Oh, wonderful. Not too far then. Awesome. Well,
Not too far, and I can feel the winds as well.
oh, it's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, it's starting to snow here right now.
Oh, well, then it might come our way that way too. Who knows? So,
Yeah.
have you seen the...
I wanted to call in
Uh-huh.
because I've seen you've gotten all kinds of callers, looking for other than what we're talking about. And I saw the movie last night.
You did! What did you think about it?
Well, a bunch of us went to see the movie last night, and it was interesting in the car coming home how each and every one of us had a different perception of what they saw directly pertaining to themselves.
Okay.
Actually, for me, I don't know why, but leaving out the bigger picture when we're obsessed with just self.
Mm-hmm.
I had a spiritual experience in this movie.
Oh, wonderful.
I've never in my life experienced a constant flow of tears, a tear stream. I've had tear drops,
Yes.
but never had a tear stream. It was like this cool stream down my face and both sides of my cheek, and I was like, it was surreal.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know that perhaps, and I was so excited to share about it on the ride home on the way, and everyone was so enthralled in self that, to me, the movie has such an enormous metaphor of a picture far bigger than us.
Yes. It is a picture far bigger than us.
Yeah, you talked about it a little bit. I mean, of course, we have all had our crosses with our parents.
Yes.
And hopefully forgiven. But the father, what I experienced I've had that type of experience with my father and had an interesting experience with him on his deathbed. But loving the father, your earthly father or your physical father, is and can become once, for me, having an experience with the Father
Yes.
or the creator of the universe
Yes.
becomes similar once you experience, or once I have experienced what I have with the Father or Jesus has been my Savior.
Wow.
I'm recovered from serious drug addiction for the last 11 years.
Wow.
Brought me closer to my Creator, and
Sometimes something like that does make us sit up and listen when you get into the skids of life, right? So, and I think your point about dealing with your earthly father and then the idea of the creator, the heavenly father, as it were, and how you develop your language of communication with them. That was an idea I have for the show, talking about what is your language that you talk to the divine with. And I think that's a wonderful point. And for Bart, he's talking to people through his music. He's talking to God through his music.
Oh, and that was a great part of the show, is that he just wanted people to hear his message.
Yes.
He wasn't overwhelmingly interested in what
Yes, and the positive effect he could have.
Go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
excited, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. He really wanted to help other people have that same message. He, of course, dedicated it to his father, but it was always with the intention of raising the vibration, the love for other people. Yes.
Well, yeah, and that was it. Something bigger than us. And
Something is bigger than us.
I've learned in my experiences of late that whenever I don't understand anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's because it's something bigger than me.
Ah, yes.
When I call on, that's when I do call on the Father of the universe.
Yes.
I've never been able to have relationships with other physical beings until I started this relationship with the Father.
With God, yes.
I'm in my own family. I'm watching my mother change
Right.
as I'm changing. It's quite surreal, but I think it's the real purpose of why we're here.
It is a purpose of why we're here, to connect with people. They're all going through their own journeys, and sometimes it is about forgiveness. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing, and sometimes they do know what they're doing, and you have to find the right forgiveness about that. But I loved your point about how we need to, for yourself, you needed to find a connection with God before you could find a true connection with other people. And I advocate that constantly. Get a strong connection, prayer practice, meditation practice, something that is going to help you feel connected with the divine. It gives you stability to have that faith and to go back to the spiritual principles. It gives you the moral compass, and it gives you peace and upliftment.
Well, yeah, and I'm finding it's the stability to walk through life, and life seems to be a storm. So it's stability to walk through the storm, but as you're walking through the storm, you're picking up these little tidbits of wisdom about yourself through your pain, through your
Yes.
troubles. And I'm 63 years old, never knew in my whole life that when I'm troubled is when I can learn most about me.
Yes.
So that's a paradox. Yeah, that's a paradox that I just started to understand.
Sometimes within those challenges of life, we find a way of losing well, right? Having good sportsmanship in our life, not just it's the game of life, but also how to succeed and overcome those challenges at different times, like to being in that flow of God's will.
Yeah, Richard Rohr wrote a book, Breathing Underwater.
Oh, Breathing Underwater? I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, and he also talked about falling upward.
Falling upwards.
Dichotomy. Yeah, it's quite the lessons in life, and seemingly, as Bart wrote this song, and the man who played his manager is on one of these music shows, and I watch and listen to the shows also.
Right.
Even in these music shows of today, the musicians that are coming up, they want to hear their pain. They want to hear their story. They want to hear their life story.
The artistic process is, a lot of times it is about expression of pain. It can be an expression of beauty. It just depends, and that certainly comes out in physical art, but also musical art. And I think that's why Bart's song has been so popular.
Beauty and the dichotomy or the paradox in the beauty can come out of the pain. See, one of the things that I'm learning is in God's economy.
Yes, God has economy. Very economical, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when we're troubled, I can end with this. When I'm troubled, don't be afraid that that's when
There's
Yes.
something really to reach for. You're enjoying the fun.
Well, it's important to have those plateaus in life. A plateau that where everything's just kind of fine for a bit before you have the next climb up the mountain.
I appreciate you saying that very much, because sometimes for me, then I'm looking for the trouble.
No. Just enjoy the breather. It's
You're right. Even though I have this new perception in
Yes.
my life, I'm not one to always stay out of trouble. So, but
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed the movie, and I really do appreciate you calling in today.
well, I'll tell you what. I was ready to drive to Lilydale because I thought you were at Lilydale giving a lecture, and I was like telling all my friends, I'm busy tomorrow morning. And then my friend Mary, who lives in Lilydale, shared with me that the show's on the radio. So
Yeah.
now I'm in my living room.
Wednesdays with Willa is the radio show. But I will have a speaking engagement here in Lilydale that you can physically come and see me on April 22nd. I will be the featured speaker and medium at the Lilydale Spiritualist Church. So you could come see me then.
Yeah, and I will introduce myself to you.
Yes,
And,
that would be lovely.
Goodness gracious. God bless.
Oh, thank you. God bless you.
Conversation.
Thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
I see I've got another caller here. I just want to take them really quickly. Ending in 3878. Again, ending in 3878. Oh, hello. Welcome to the show. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, it's Deborah calling from Ohio.
Hi. What were your thoughts about the I Can Only Imagine movie?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if I don't know. I'm wondering how it's similar to the other movies that are out already. Like oh gosh, my mind just went blank. The one with the Chopra and
What is it? What with the
the one The Secret.
Oh, The Secret. Oh, The Secret. That came out many years ago. And that was more filmed in a documentary style way. And did talk about the law of attraction. And especially heavily focused on that particular spiritual natural law. And again, that was more of a documentary where they interviewed various folks. And I remember seeing that movie, and I have the book. And that was a very good one. This is more of his life story based on writing his song. You know, in the movie, Amy Grant says to him, because she says, "What's the backstory for the song?" And he said, "Well, I wrote it in 10 minutes. The lyrics in 10 minutes. I wrote the music in 10 minutes." And that's all it took for me. She says, "No, Bart, this didn't just take you 10 minutes to write this song. This is a significant song." And so he says, I've never really told anybody my story. And so that's why the basis of the movie is. It's about how when we get to these moments in our life, especially in his musical life of creative expression, that he realized that everything that had gone before in his life had shaped him for this particular moment. And so that's what this movie is about. Does that help you?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And so I think that it's appealing for people who wouldn't necessarily go in for a quote-unquote spiritual movie, but still like something that's a bit more uplifting than some of the other movies offered out there. And I think that's part of its grab, the I Can Only Imagine movie. I think it's something that people can really relate with, because there are other people that have been through abusive relationships or had issues forgiving people who they felt really hurt them in their family, in their life. And it's a song, in his case, that took a lifetime to write. And sometimes we have those things in our life. Well, how did you get to this moment in time? It's because everything in my life was building for this moment. So that's what one of the exciting parts of this movie is, for me.
But yeah, I'm in a weird little crossroads myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I go this way? Do I go that way? Do I go that way?
And I think it's ultimately about listening to your soul. Like, when you listen to your soul and you ask yourself, is this in my highest and best good? Yes or no? And you'll get an answer. And it won't be your head or your heart answering. This is about your soul. Your very being tells you how to proceed. And that's the most valuable voice. It's your connection with God. And I frequently will tell people that your life is not about ask the audience. You need to be listening to your soul and developing that rapport. And you'll feel intuitive leads or divine hunches on how you need to proceed in life. And especially in that moment, kind of like when you're going through a storm, I think it's kind of appropriate that it's really, really windy today. When you're going through a storm, and how do you find that little piece of place of peace? And what I've done in my past is I've taken a good walk. I go out into the woods. I take and I could just be feeling it all in me, right? And then I get to a place and I let it go, and I truly give it to God. And it's called casting the burden. And then I'll turn around and walk that same path back. And all of a sudden, it's like I can see the leaves on the trees. And, oh, look, there's a squirrel. And it's like I'm able to put those other things in my life on hold for a while and truly give this to God and start to hear how to proceed and how to react with a spiritual response instead of a knee-jerk reaction. Does that make sense to you, Deborah?
It does.
Good.
I'm at a place where I'm in a relationship with someone who has distinctly different spiritual beliefs. They're very mainstream Christianity, which does not work for me anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the cross, wonderful, wonderful person.
Yeah.
Care deeply, but is this going to go anywhere when we have such polarizing views?
That's something that people, when they do talk in the Bible, they talk about being evenly yoked with someone. Coming into a relationship, it's a wonderful thing if you can be evenly yoked with your mate. That you believe and understand about the same things and still leave room for further exploration and interpretation about life. And so you're the only one who can be your guidance system about that. But I know we're over time with my radio show here. I do appreciate you calling in today, Deborah. And I hope that, if you do get a chance to see the movie, that you can see how there is something to be learned by watching other people go through their journeys. And that sometimes in the midst of perceived suffering, other things are going on. And that you can really go into a space of compassion about what somebody else is going through. Well, thank you, Deborah, for calling in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I know we're over time with the radio show, so I'm going to end this part of it and hang up for this. But I wanted to tell everybody that when it comes to seeing this movie, it is wonderful if you can start to look for the spiritual elements in it. And maybe you'll comment about them later on the show or on the event. I can only imagine on my Facebook page. Let me know what you think about it after you've seen the movie, and what kind of peace it may have brought you, or what kind of discovery you made along the journey. So I think it's really crucial that when we are looking at, viewing things or reading things, that we start to see the underlying spiritual underpinnings to the world. And I love that it's reflected in this movie. So I hope that all of you have enjoyed today's Spiritualist cinema conversation about I Can Only Imagine, and I do feel it's a wonderful movie. It's, again, was done on a very low budget, but the message is beautiful. Very, very beautiful. And I hope that I've given you a good background and synopsis about this, because there are great things to come in your life and there are great discoveries to be made. And I want before I let you all go, next week my guest will be Don Reinhold, and he is the former world's strongest man, and he lives here in Lilydale, and he is famous in our area for going to the area schools and doing wonderful demonstrations for folks. I think it's more in a talking presenter category now, but he's a delightful gentleman, and I can't wait to talk about strength and inner fortitude with him and with all of you next week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. So you could tune in next week. In the weeks to come, we'll be talking about spiritual healing. We'll be talking about the music of spiritualism. We even have a Harry Potter show, prayer. People who are asking about the difference between meditation and prayer, we'll talk about those things in the shows to come. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Lots of love to all of you, and I hope you stay tuned for the good that will come in your own life. God bless. Bye-bye.